All right, Max. You've been on the bench long enough. What do you got for me? Metroid Prime 4
Oh,
Beyond, baby.
boy, have
2025.
I fucking been waiting for this. 7 years.
Literally the first time that we've seen anything about this game since 2017 when it was revealed,
Yep.
except for when they said it was canceled and
Yep.
restarted. We've never seen footage, never seen as much as a fucking screenshot of this damn thing. You've had some time to process. What's up?
Yes. So, when I just had as soon as I saw that green text start coming up, I was like, "This is Metroid, but what Metroid is it gonna be?" And then when it had, like, the space year, I was like, "I don't know, my space calendar's, out of date, I don't know what this means." But as soon as she landed in that sort of this Metroid Prime 3 shit with, like, the new red trim, I was like, "Here we go, baby, it's Metroid Prime 4." And, like, as we started into it, I was like, "Yeah, this looks like what I wanted it to look like." I wanted it to I'm tripping over my words with excitement. I wanted it to look like the Metroid Prime Remastered, just new, and they've done that. They've updated the designs of, like, the space pirates, and they've got, very what seems like a very classic, opening segment where the opening's more like, you're being funneled because the rest of the game then opens up. We're getting the Galactic Federation, we're getting, like, what seems to be an invading space pirate army and also an invading Psylocke, who, for those who don't know, was a minor villain in Metro Prime Hunters and then was right at the very end of Metroid Prime 3, but just when you think the trilogy's over and everything's over, Samus flies away, and then there's a familiar blue ship of Psylocke following her. Metroid Prime Federation Force, the end of the
You're
game,
telling me
there's like
Metroid
a
Prime 3 ends on a fucking cliffhanger?
yeah,
That's
right, and
insane.
I've been 2007, so that's been what? Do the maths for me.
Rough.
17 years. Is that right? 17 years? Maybe, give or take.
You keep talking, I'll do the math.
Yeah, 17 years we've been sort of sitting like, well, what does that mean? And then we've just using a calculator.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. Um,
I don't do math. It's 18 years.
okay, fine. 18 years.
Even worse. One more.
Nearly
But
20 years
nearly
between them.
20 years between
This is
this
Kingdom Hearts 3
cliffhanger.
level nonsense.
Yep. And then I'm pretty sure when Metroid Prime 4 was first announced in 2017, again, that was like I was so overwhelmed that I just couldn't make any noises or anything like that. I had like my friends were just like, "Are you okay, mate?" And I was just like, "My God." So I've just again been waiting sort of almost just as long for it. This looks good. This looks good. This does exactly what I wanted to do. Silex. Oh, I wasn't finished with Silex. Silex was then in Federation Force that no one played or cared about. Right at the very end, he'd stolen a Metroid. We're seeing here that the part of this invasion is also Silex with this Metroid, and then it ends on like Samus, sort of what seems to be a cutscene where you first enter an area. Great big lush forest showing us this. Yeah, we're still going to have the same classic sort of big open areas, possibly multiple planets because this looks like two completely different planets. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm so glad this is happening. I'm so glad that it's a shame it's not this year, and I understand that they're maybe saving it for Switch 2 launch, or it just needs more time in the oven. But yeah,
I want to pick on that because that was something. So, like
Pick.
I said, I was watching this with a couple of friends, like live, and everybody was so like, "Oh, what a great direct! What a great direct!" And then when this popped, there was a lot of disappointment because they were like,
Oh,
"Man,
really?
like, why is there not a release date? Like, why even show it
Mm,
if you don't have a release date? Like, why have such a strong direct and not end on Zelda or one of these things that like is locked in, right?" I was surprised. I was like, I'm really surprised that you all feel that way. Like,
Oh my god, I
and
didn't feel that way at all. I'm like,
I know.
finally something.
I'm
mhm.
right there with you. And as soon as I kind of like I was like totally I'm interested in why you guys feel that way. Like what's the vibe? And I was kind of like trying to pick their brains and I was like, well, I kind of interpreted that as like I don't think it looked like it was running on Switch. I think it looked like it was running really smoothly. It looked like it was like 60 FPS. I feel like it is probably running on the Switch too, and it's probably either a exclusive launch title, and that's why they didn't give us a release date, or it's going to take the place of what Zelda's done traditionally the last like 3 console generations, where it's the last big game on Nintendo Switch and the first big game on Nintendo Switch too. So to me, it's like, yeah, of course we didn't get a
Yeah.
release date, right? This is the first time they've actually shown the fucking thing,
So on that, there is the trailer at the end has the Switch logo in the corner. It says Nintendo Switch on the YouTube channel. So I do think that whatever happens, this will be coming to Switch, whether it then also comes to Switch 2, or like you say, it's like the final release. Um, but I mean, Metroid Samus Returns was a game that came out um, like 6 months after the Switch came out. It came out the August
Yeah.
of 2017. So it could even be that it's like the last hurrah, like you say, similar to Breath of the Wild, where it's like it sees out the Switch generation. But if it is supposed to come out with that, and the Switch 2 is supposed to be out in like Q1, Q2 of next year, cool, wicked. Like, bring me this game by sort of beginning of next year. This year is looking so hot for me with Monster Hunter Wilds and other games I can't think of. This is yeah, this looks so good. Did
I'm
you
glad
guys?
it's
Have you?
not coming out this year, actually. I think if it was
Yeah,
Oh my
coming out this
god,
fall,
yeah.
it would just be, like, crowded.
yeah. There's
Yeah.
so much going on.
If it was
Did
coming
you?
out next year, like, I don't need a date, like, right now. I'm
Mhm.
fine.
Yeah, just so it's coming. Like, even if they just like they're not really going to be giving out like Q1, Q2 because like things maybe do change when you announce something like potentially a year in advance. So I can see maybe why they have just given the year, and I think it's safer to give a year when you have just a year as opposed to
Mhm.
like trying to pigeonhole yourself in. Because then you have to announce a delay instead of just saying it'll be out next year, and then
Especially
you
when
have
they
that
had
visibility.
to how embarrassed they were about the reveal and then reneging of that reveal this time
Yeah,
around. Like, one of my friends was like, "Oh, like, I'm, like, worried because like, they showed us this, but it's like, what if it doesn't even come out in 2025?" I was like, "Oh, it's coming out. There's no fucking way
yeah.
that they show this one too early." Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this game has been done for, like, 6 months, and they're just like, "We're gonna squash bugs until Nintendo Switch 2 reveal," right? Like, I months ago now, but Sierra and I had an episode where we were talking about how, the word on the street was that Nintendo delayed the Switch 2's launch so that they could shore up more software for the release lineup. So I wouldn't be surprised if this game is already like totally feature complete and we're just polishing it until it's ready to go, right?
Yeah,
We know that they've done that in the past, right? How long were they sitting on that Prime remaster before it finally came out?
yeah. We heard rumors about that back when this was the loot pots. Back when this was the Potscast, we had rumors of Metroid Prime. Just they're sitting on it. They're sitting on it. They're waiting for it. They're waiting for it. And then there it is, and it came out in such a good state. And I hope that this probably does the same thing, right?
And you
Because that
think
was a
about it, right? When did they save it for? They saved it for a year where they didn't have a lot to put out in Q1, and it was huge. It was a huge
yeah,
release for them rather
yeah,
than, a minor release on a year where they were already settled. So it's like I wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised if that's the case with this one, where it's like, hey, like we really fumbled the bag, and we are really trying to make Metroid a thing. Dread was a huge success. Metroidvania is more popular as a genre than it's ever been. Like, this is their chance to come out and put out a blockbuster that like makes Metroid, you know, sales wise what it is legacy wise, right? And it's the same thing that happened with Zelda, right? Like we were talking a couple weeks ago about how it's like 60% of like all of the sales of Legend of Zelda titles are on the Nintendo Switch. Just because of how popular Tears and Breath were. So like
hmm
the idea that this game has the potential to kind of be that breakout hit and be the game that like makes everybody, shut the fuck up and pay attention to Metroid is like you got to get it right, and
Yeah, I
I
think.
don't think you show this trailer if you don't feel really confident that it's close.
Yeah, I think the thing that Dread had was that um, whether this is correct or not, but the idea of like a $60 2D game, $60 side scroller, which I understand why you would come from that way, but I also know that the game was definitely worth that. I got my time out of it. A lot of care's gone into it, but to have the $60 first person shooter Metroid game, that's a lot more appealing to a lot more people, I think. And I think we're going to see. Hopefully, this be the one that takes off, especially considering it might be like you say, like the game people buy with their Switch 2. They might buy their Switch 2 and also pick this game up with it. And it's the Breath of the Wild. It's there. Oh, I want my Switch 2, so this is the game I'm going to play with it. And then they go, oh, I like Metroid now, so I'm going to use the backwards compatibility of this to now go back and play Dread, play Metroid Prime 1, maybe 2 and 3 comes out in that time. You never know.
Mm.
Yeah,
Can you
this was
imagine
a
if we
this
get
was
a
a great announcement.
Metroid Switch? That would be so
Mm,
sick.
That would
don't
be
you
nice.
dare. Don't you dare. I keep thinking about the potential, like, collector's editions and things like that, and I know I'm gonna be, like, like, sleepless nights over, I can't miss it because I missed all the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 stuff. I desperately wanna just have everything to do with this, and I think what I really want is a new Figma, but for this new Silux model. The old Silux model, the old design for Silux on the 3DS, sorry, just the DS, it's a bit weird. It's a bit like you can tell it's just a side character, and they've really refined it and tried to make him look more like a match for Samus this time in terms of like it's a man in a suit, not just like a weird freaky alien. Very cool, very cool. I'm so happy. I've been waiting
Last
so
thing
long for this.
Last question I guess I want to ask you before we put a pin on this one, because we'll be talking about Metroid Prime 4 quite a bit in the
Yeah,
weeks
yeah.
and months to come, I imagine. What was your read on the gameplay that we saw? Because I mean, I'm not a big Metroid guy, right? Like I played Prime back in the day, but my brain was a little too young and smooth to get through it. Um, I kind of got a little bit of like a Doom vibe at one point. There's like you walk into this room and you're like in this kind of big circular arena, and a door opens and all these enemies start pouring in, and Samus starts like moving and dodging and shooting. I was like, oh, like this feels a little bit akin to that arena shooter kind of vibe.
So there is actually a lot of that in Metro Prime. There's like areas, especially when you're in like the space pirate areas, their sort of their bases. We will go into a room and then like the doors will lock and there'll be just a bunch of enemies to kill. And that very much does have that Doom feeling to it of like I'm rummaging around. Sometimes I'm in the dark or whatever, and I'm just pummeling these enemies. And this that did feel like that sort of part of the game. But I also feel like this feels also like like I said earlier, like an on rails introduction to the game where you're introduced to Silux again. He's got the two Metroids or Moctroids, whatever they are, behind him. He steals something important, maybe, and then you go off, and that's sort of the catalyst
He
for the
steals
game.
all your
Samus
stuff,
loses
and you have
steals all your
nothing left,
stuff.
nothing but your
Yeah, I
suit,
like yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, he steals all your stuff, and there's something about this logo that I think it looks a bit alien, a bit like, which I know Metroid is set in space and there's a lot of aliens, but like alien even for Metroid in like it's what's the race from Mass Effect that has like a purpley like uh smooth curved like thing to it? Am I thinking of Mass Effect?
Maybe.
Let's move on. But there's
Okay.
like a there's like a that sort of like curved, it seems like extraterrestrial or like from like another world or another
Yeah,
time or something
definitely.
like that. And I think that maybe that's going to play into it as well. Yeah, I think if you follow me on Twitter and you're um, not a Metroid fan, it's probably worth muting me because I'm going to get real annoying real quick about this game. So yeah, really happy with this.
Yo, we're gonna have trouble keeping you off this podcast for the next couple months, I think.
Anything there's anything new, I'll be there. I'm pretty sure I
Same.
started, getting involved in doing podcasts so I could talk about Metroid with people, and I've done a lot of that now, so
Come full circle.